A family sits around the dinner table. The atmosphere seems calm. The food is warm. But just beneath the surface, there's an unspoken tension. The father sighs a little too deeply. The mother avoids making eye contact. The siblings laugh in ways that don't feel quite natural. Then it happens, a small mistake. Maybe someone spills a drink or tells a joke that falls flat. And suddenly, all eyes turn to one person. The one who always gets the blame. The one who becomes the lightning rod for all the family's hidden frustrations. That person is the scapegoat. If you've ever been in that role, you know it's more than just a moment of hurt. It shapes how you see yourself, how you move through the world, how you breathe in every relationship that follows. Being the scapegoat isn't just about being blamed. It's about being cast into a role you never chose. This role doesn't appear by accident. It's a deeply psychological mechanism that families unconsciously create to maintain balance, to avoid collapse, to direct their hidden chaos somewhere safe. But that safe place becomes a person. Why does this happen? Why would a family, a place meant for love and protection, choose one of its own to carry the weight of its dysfunction? That's what we're exploring today. And by the end, I promise you'll see this pattern in a way you can't unsee. Because when you truly understand the psychology of the scapegoat, you begin to understand not just families, but human relationships as a whole. You start to see how unspoken dynamics silently control our lives. And if you've ever felt like the scapegoat, you'll understand why it felt so painfully real, and also why it was never truly about you. Think of it like this: every family carries tension, secrets, regrets, financial stress, unhealed wounds, unspoken conflicts. These things don't just vanish. They need somewhere to go. So, unconsciously, families create a system of roles. There's the golden child, the peacemaker, the invisible one, the hero, and then there's the scapegoat. The one who absorbs everything no one else wants to touch. Psychologists call this projective identification. It's when one person becomes the container for emotions others can't face in themselves. If the parents feel shame, the scapegoat becomes the shameful one. If the family feels anger, the scapegoat becomes the angry one. If the family feels inadequate, the scapegoat is painted as the failure. The role becomes a mirror, reflecting not who the scapegoat truly is, but everything the family cannot accept about itself. But here's the cruel irony. The scapegoat is often the most sensitive, the most intuitive, the one who sees the family's truth most clearly. And that's precisely why they're chosen, because their presence threatens to expose what everyone else wants to deny. So instead of listening, the family silences them. Instead of embracing them, the family exiles them. The truth teller becomes the problem. Now imagine growing up under that weight. Every criticism hits harder. Every glance feels like judgment. Every success is either minimized or twisted into something else. Over time, you start to internalize the role. You begin to think, maybe I am the problem. Maybe I do ruin everything. That belief doesn't stay in childhood. It follows you into adulthood, shaping your friendships, your relationships, your career. It whispers in your ear whenever you feel joy, telling you you don't deserve it. But what if I told you the scapegoat isn't just the most rejected one in the family? What if I told you they're also, paradoxically, the most powerful? That buried inside this painful role is a hidden strength no one else in the family possesses. Hold that thought. We'll come back to it. Let's go deeper. One key concept here is family homeostasis. Families, like any system, crave stability, even if it's unhealthy. It feels safer than change. So when conflict rises, instead of facing the root cause, families redistribute the tension, onto one member. The scapegoat becomes the pressure valve. They're blamed not because they're truly guilty, but because the family's fragile balance depends on it. It's like a play where every actor has a script. The golden child gets praise. The peacemaker smooths things over. And the scapegoat gets blamed. Everyone plays their part so the story can continue. But here's the tragedy. The scapegoat isn't playing a role they chose. It's imposed on them. And once the narrative is written, it's painfully hard to rewrite. If you've ever been scapegoated, you know the feeling of invisibility. You can shout your truth, but no one listens. You can explain your intentions, but no one believes you. You can try to be perfect, but perfection never protects you. Because the role isn't about what you do, it's about what the family needs you to be. And yet here's what's easy to miss. The scapegoat is often the healthiest member of the family system. Why? Because they're the one refusing to live in denial. They're the one carrying the shadow others won't face. They're the one exposing the wound, even if unconsciously. In that way, the scapegoat is both the victim and the healer. But let me ask you, if you've ever been scapegoated, have you noticed how the role repeats? Have you find yourself playing the same part in workplaces, friendships, even romantic relationships? That's no coincidence. The role gets internalized. Your nervous system, your self-concept, your sense of worth, all learn to expect blame, to anticipate rejection. Without realizing it, you walk into new rooms already bracing for it. But here's where it gets interesting. Research shows that the scapegoat is often the one who eventually breaks the cycle. Why? Because pain becomes fuel. Exile becomes seeking. Rejection becomes truth-telling. The very role that once crushed you becomes the reason you learn to heal. Earlier, I promised you there's a hidden power inside the scapegoat role. Here it is. The scapegoat carries awareness. They see what others cannot. They feel what others deny. And while that made them a target inside the family, it becomes their gift outside of it. They develop resilience, empathy, intuition. They become the ones who walk into a room and sense the unspoken. They create art, write stories, lead with compassion, see through illusions. This transformation doesn't happen automatically. It takes healing, reflection, often years of unlearning. But the potential is there. And that's why, if you've ever been the scapegoat, I want you to hear this. You are not broken. You are not the problem. You are the mirror that was forced to carry everyone else's reflection. And now you get to decide whether to keep carrying it or to set it down. Before we talk about healing, there's another layer. Not every family chooses a scapegoat the same way. Sometimes it's the oldest child, sometimes the youngest. Sometimes it's the one who looks different, thinks differently, or refuses to conform. Sometimes the role shifts today. It's one sibling, tomorrow another. But the choice always reveals something deeper about the family's hidden wounds. Here's a new curiosity to sit with. What if the scapegoat isn't chosen randomly? What if the child who becomes the scapegoat is chosen because they reflect what the family can't face? What if being the scapegoat means you were never weak, but always the strongest? Families, like individuals, have shadows, parts of themselves they don't want to see. Often, the scapegoat is the one who embodies or reveals that shadow. Maybe they're more sensitive, and the family can't tolerate vulnerability. Maybe they're more rebellious, and the family can't tolerate defiance. Maybe they're more honest, and the family can't tolerate truth. In other words, the scapegoat becomes the screen onto which the family projects what they most fear about themselves. It's not weakness that makes someone the scapegoat, it's often strength. Strength that threatens the family's illusion. And so, unconsciously, the family says, "We can't carry this. You will carry it for us." And the child, without choice, becomes the carrier. What does this do to the scapegoat psychology? To understand, we need to look at internalized blame. When you grow up being told you're the problem, you don't just resist it, you absorb it. You build an identity around rejection. Every criticism confirms what you already suspect. Every misunderstanding reinforces the belief that you're fundamentally wrong, fundamentally unworthy. Psychologists find that children who grow up scapegoated often develop a false self, a protective mask. Polite, accommodating, sometimes overachieving, all to hide the pain inside. The false self says, "If I can just perform well enough, maybe I'll finally be accepted." But deep down, the real self is suffocating, waiting for permission to exist. Here's the heartbreaking part. The scapegoat often spends years, sometimes decades, trying to earn the approval of the very people who place them in the role. They try to fix themselves, prove themselves, redeem themselves. But no amount of proving will rewrite the family script. Because the role was never about truth. It was about survival. Now, let me open another loop. Because while this sounds bleak, there's a hidden doorway inside this pain. And once the scapegoat discovers it, everything begins to change. The very thing that once crushed them becomes the seed of their freedom. Hold that thought. We'll come back to it. Research shows that former scapegoats often struggle with boundaries. They may over-explain, over-apologize, or stay in toxic relationships too long because their nervous system expects rejection. On the flip side, some become fiercely independent, determined never to need anyone again. Both are survival strategies shaped by early wounds. But here's where awareness comes in. Once you realize your patterns are not proof of your brokenness, but proof of your survival, you can begin to shift them. You can start to see that what you thought was weakness was actually resilience. You can begin to reclaim the voice that was silenced. And this is where the scapegoat's hidden power finally reveals itself. Most members of the family system remain trapped in denial. The golden child keeps performing for approval. The peacemaker keeps smoothing things over. But the scapegoat, the one who was exiled, is often the first to seek healing. Why? Because pain forced them to. Exile pushed them towards self-discovery. Rejection demanded they look inward for strength. Paradoxically, the scapegoat becomes the one most likely to break the cycle. They become the cycle breaker, the one who says, "This ends with me." They learn about psychology, therapy, boundaries, spirituality. They dare to face the family shadow head-on and refuse to pass it forward. Think about that. The person who was blamed for everything becomes the one who transforms everything. That is the hidden gift of the scapegoat. And if you've ever been in that role, hear this clearly. The pain you endured does not define you, but the strength it gave you can. Let's circle back to that doorway I mentioned earlier. The scapegoat's healing begins the moment they realize the blame was never about them. It was projection. It was displacement. It was the family's way of surviving. And once you see that you can begin to step outside the role, you can begin to ask, who am I outside this identity? What do I love, not because I'm trying to prove something, but because it's truly mine? What relationships feel safe, not because I'm walking on eggshells, but because I'm free to be myself? That's the work. That's the path. It's not easy. It's often messy, filled with grief for the years you lost, anger for the injustice, confusion about who you really are. But inside that mess is also a rebirth. Because to be the scapegoat is to be forced into exile. And exile is often where transformation happens. Think of every myth, every hero's journey. The one cast out is the one who returns with wisdom. Maybe that's the deeper meaning of the scapegoat. Not just to suffer, but to awaken. Not just to carry the family shadow, but to eventually transform it into light. If you've ever felt like the scapegoat, misunderstood, blamed, rejected, I want you to remember something. You are not defined by the story your family told about you. You are not the problem they projected onto you. You are the one who saw what others could not bear to see. You are the one who felt what others could not bear to feel. And because of that, you carry within you a depth, a resilience, a clarity no one can take away. You may have been the scapegoat, but that role does not have to be your destiny. Your destiny can be to transform that pain into wisdom, to build relationships that are real, not performative, to raise your voice where it was once silenced, to live not as the reflection of someone else's shadow, but as the embodiment of your own light. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest gift of the scapegoat is this. You know in the deepest part of your being what it feels like to carry what is not yours. Which means you also know how liberating it feels to finally lay it down. So if this is you, if these words feel like they were written from inside your own chest, then let this be the moment where you begin to rewrite the script, where you stop trying to earn love that was never conditional on your worth, where you step out of the role that was handed to you and step into the life that was always waiting for you. Because you are not the problem. You are the possibility. And the world doesn't need you to carry the blame anymore. The world needs you to become who you were always meant to be.